We ready, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. We'll go ahead and call this East Peoria City Council working session to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker.
Here.
Hill. Mingus.
Here.
Sutherland.
Here.
Mayor Call.
Here.
All present except Commissioner Hill, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you. Today's working session is on the 2045 Comprehensive Plan. It's an update. And obviously, this is for discussion purposes only, and no formal action will be taken. With that, Ty, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can introduce our guest and go from there.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this session today is for the comprehensive plan, and it's 2045. Seems like a long way out, but typically with these plans, you look for a 20-year planning horizon. As we know from experience, good development takes time. And so certainly this is a guide. Once you're completed with this comprehensive plan, it's a guide for development moving forward. So the comprehensive plan, I mentioned this during our budget hearings, it's as much about the input process, about getting information, getting feedback from our residents as it is about the plan itself. If you don't have good feedback, you don't have a good plan. It's not reflective of the community. So it's something that we're going to emphasize tonight. We're at kind of a halfway point with this process. Kristen Harden, who's here from PGAV, and her team have worked very diligently in public outreach. We've got more events to come, and I just wanted to touch upon those, not looking to steal her thunder, but we've had a couple of events so far. We had an open house here at the Atrium back in May. Very well received, well attended. Her team did a great job of engaging, particularly parents that were bringing their children to the library and giving the children some activity to take their time, and then got the parents involved too. So it was a really a well-received event. We're going to have another one of those in September. There's been some pop-up events where we've gone out to people. We've gone to the farmer's market. We've been over here at Reverend's Coffee. We'll look for more opportunities like that. Coming, we're also going to go to the civics class at the East Peoria High School, as well as a neighborhood meeting in the Richland neighborhood. So lots of good outreach to come. At this point, there's also been a survey. There's a lot of other public outreach points that she's going to talk about and share with you what kind of feedback we've gotten. So with that, Kristen, take it away.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Happy to be here tonight to give you all an update on the comprehensive plan process. So tonight we'll sort of touch on high-level highlights related to existing conditions, some community engagement, what we're doing now, some of our early steps related to land use and development scenario planning, and then talk about some of the next steps and some of the engagement activities that Ty mentioned. So on our project timeline, Ty mentioned we're sort of at the halfway point here. We've completed our existing conditions, community analysis. We've completed the bulk of the engagement, but that is an ongoing aspect of the process. There'll be engagement throughout. We are in our scenario planning and development phase, and this is sort of where we start to think about some of the challenges and opportunities and key areas of the community, and then also start to think about future land use planning for the city as a whole. And then the last phase will be the objectives, key results, plan development, and adoption process. So that'll be where we take everything that we learned from the first three phases, develop goals, objectives, and strategies in partnership with the steering committee and city staff, which will set the framework for the comprehensive plan document, and then we'll work with staff to walk that through the adoption process with the planning commission as well as city council. All right, so existing conditions. Typical planning process, you look at demographic trends, some market analysis, you look at existing zoning, existing land uses throughout the community. So we've done a lot of that work, and just wanted to highlight some points that I thought you all might be more interested in hearing. So for our market analysis, we looked at three sort of major components: residential development, retail, as well as industrial development. So just to kind of highlight some market trends, looking at for sale housing, or I'll actually start by saying as we go through the market trends related to these three segments of the community. Sort of a recurring theme will be the fact that, a lot of the development here in East Peoria was sort of built quite some time ago. So you'll see some of the charts here that show some of the development trends, and you'll be able to see some of that. So looking at the for sale housing market trends, a limited production of new for sale housing over the last decade. And so this chart that you see here on the right shows housing production based on building permit data in East Peoria relative to Tazewell County, as well as the Peoria MSA on the whole. And so you can see, going back to 2010, how housing production in East Peoria has kept up with the broader area. And you start to also see that show up in, other trends. This chart here looks at median home sales prices compared to Tazewell County, as well as the metro area. So in East Peoria, you sort of see a big jump between 2012 and 2023 related to the median home sales price. So I'm sure you kind of know the formula for supply and demand. So we were talking earlier about, what some indicators of why, that big jump may have occurred, and why that growth, has outpaced growth in Tazewell County and the broader Peoria region over this 10-year period. That demand, could be a factor. And what we've seen here is that, there is some demand for new single-family homes. Specifically, we've pointed out a need for conservatively roughly 5 to 15 new homes on an annual basis over the next few years. But one of the key takeaways here is that, housing market demand today, and this is probably could be said for most communities, is really being driven by, preferences related to lifestyles and housing choices, more so than population growth. When we look at demographics, there hasn't been a lot of growth in East Peoria or the surrounding region, for that matter, in the last 10 years, relatively stable over the last 10 years in terms of population. So diversifying housing types in the community would be a way to sort of attract the population based on the housing needs and preferences of folks looking for housing in the region. Thinking about multifamily housing, again, just a limited production of multifamily housing over the last decade. Looking at the map, the chart to the right, you can see there in red housing production, multifamily production in East Peoria going back to 2010, and you only see that there in 2021. So again, not keeping pace with Tazewell County and the Peoria MSA. Much of that growth in 2021 is attributed to the Cypress Ridge apartments, but we do know that just next door we'll have Bluetown apartments coming online here in the next year, bringing over 200 new units to the area. And the Bluetown Apartments developer is one of our key stakeholders that we've been able to engage through this process. And so, just talking to stakeholders and looking at the data, one of our key takeaways here is that, there, is some unmet need in terms of multifamily housing here in the region that East Peoria could capture. So thinking about retail market trends, roughly 23% of the total building square footage in East Peoria is dedicated to retail development, so about 3.5 million square feet. But again, thinking about, the history of how things have been built, the chart on the right shows the history of commercial square footage development within East Peoria's primary commercial corridors and commercial districts. And again, you can see here the lighter blue color reflects square footage added post 2010, and then the darker color is pre 2010. So much of the development over the last 10, 15 years has been here down in the levee district relative to some of the other commercial areas. And what we've been hearing so far through our engagement with the community is that, while people, love the levee district, it's a beautiful place, they love the amenities and the diversity of retail options, but folks would like to see some more attention and opportunities for small local businesses to thrive. So thinking about some of those older commercial corridors, what sorts of things can we do to sort of attract some reinvestment in existing commercial structures and make things more affordable for your local and small business owners who, likely can afford, a $30, $40 per square foot rent in a new construction building. And then thinking about industrial market trends, about 25% of the region's industrial space is located here in East Peoria. Key takeaway on this one, low vacancy, but sort of a slow but rising trend in lease rates for industrial square footage in East Peoria. So it's an indicator of some, stable and potentially growth in demand. What we've heard through engagement on other projects here in the Midwest is that, those industrial users that the region's looking to attract, they're looking at location, they're looking at access, and they're looking at, those incentives, especially related to new construction. Enterprise zone is one that a lot of the regional industrial realtors and developers look for when they've got tenants who need new construction. That's one that goes over fairly well. But I think for East Peoria, it's figuring out, what's the niche here? Is it, the large footprint warehouse distribution users, or are we, wanting to target some of those smaller footprint users who may be kind of in the middle of the supply chain with, your wholesale and some of your larger industrial users? So that's real quick, high-level industrial market trends. Happy to answer any questions on that before we get into engagement. Nope.
I'm good.
All right, so what have we been up to over the last several months? So we have a project website up. It's eastpeoria2045.com. That's where we are keeping updated information about the planning process. This is where community members can go to, first off, learn what a comprehensive plan is, why it's important for communities to have a comprehensive plan, and then why they should participate and how they can participate. So far, we've had over 1,000 visits to the project website, so folks checking it out, learning about upcoming engagement activities. We've also been in the news, so watch the news because, our city staff is doing a good job of keeping information out there to the public. We had a community survey that was live earlier this summer, had over 450 responses, and so that was a very good turnout for a comprehensive plan in terms of responses. Some other things that we've done, we've had some small group discussions with city council members and planning and zoning members. We have a steering committee, who we're meeting with on a regular basis, including some elected appointed officials, city staff, and other stakeholders in the community. Ty mentioned our open house. We've done lots of stakeholder interviews, and we've also done some pop-up engagement where we sort of showed up at a local business. A couple of weeks ago, we were at Reverend's Coffee, which is just here near City Hall, and then we were here at the Farmers Market. So trying to find different ways to engage, different cohorts of the community. Open House 1. So the first open house for a comprehensive plan process is really our opportunity to introduce the planning process sort of, in an educational format for the community, share some of our findings related to demographics and market trends, gather some reactions about how the community has changed over time, and then also, just really ask the community to, have an open mind, what are some of the, issues or things that you would like to see change in the community? What are things you love about the community? What are some of your big ideas? Like, how would you like to see East Peoria change over the next 20 years? So this is just a sample of some of the engagement activities and boards that we had at the first open house. And we also, as Ty mentioned, had a youth engagement station. You never know what you'll hear from the youth. One specific young lady who came out and completed our drawing activity had a very particular idea for the Levee District. She mentioned that she'd like to see a development that houses a hotel so that she can have a staycation and spa day along with a youth museum. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're thinking about new projects. Our community survey sort of had some overlap with some of the questions that we had in the open house, and it's also just a way to reach more members of the community. Of course, we know everyone, can't come out and join us in person, so this was that opportunity for more community members to participate. Just some of the feedback related to questions about what types of residential and commercial development the community would like to see be built in East Peoria in the next 10, 20 years, and then questions about where they would like to see that be developed. In terms of residential development, single family development, which is always the case in every comprehensive plan, receive, the highest rating in terms of preferences. But then, and you can't see this here in my little pointer's not working, but mixed-use development was rated second behind single-family development. We heard a lot of folks, just in conversation, talk about, their excitement about the Bluetown development. It's the first of its kind for East Peoria. They're uncertain on how it's going to turn out, but they're hopeful that, it'll, be a great turnout for East Peoria and, put some, permanent residents and foot traffic down here in the Levee District. Thinking about commercial development, we did hear a lot of interest in folks wanting to have a place that felt more like a traditional Main Street. And when we asked folks, where would that be, there were references to older commercial corridors, more specifically the Four Corners District, and lots of references to Peoria Heights. So if you could go take Peoria Heights, their main sort of corridor, and put that here, I think the community would be very happy with that. But I think we'll try to, do something much more East Peoria for that. And then in terms of stakeholder meetings, this is just sort of a quick summary of some of the stakeholders that we've talked to. We did frame these discussions in focus groups because, there are a lot of folks that we could talk to through this planning process, but, we have a timeline and a schedule that we're trying to keep. And so we framed these as focus group discussions and invited different stakeholders from the community to participate in these conversations. Very fruitful, so we'll have summaries on a lot of this engagement stuff that'll come out, and you guys will have an opportunity to kind of dig into some of that. All right, questions about engagement? Nope. All right. Land use and development scenario planning. So as I mentioned earlier, this phase is where we work with communities to really identify sub-areas, which could be a neighborhood, a corridor, a specific site or property that may be more susceptible to change over the next 10, 20 years, or that presents some very unique challenges that maybe the community or the city just hasn't been able to figure out. And so we want to work with the city as well as the community to figure out, what's happening today, what are some of the key issues and opportunities related to these sub areas, and then pairing that with, broader community feedback about changes and opportunities that the community foresees, and pairing that with our team's expertise and best practices and things that we've done in other communities to figure out what may be the best way forward. So the two sub-areas that we're working on is the Richland Farms neighborhood as well as the Four Corners district. So just sort of quickly summarizing, what do we know about the Richland Farms neighborhood right now? We've heard a lot about, a history of sort of flooding and infrastructure issues, primarily related to maintenance of the levee district, housing need, and housing quality. So things related to property maintenance are thinking about ways to attract new housing or reinvestment in the existing housing stock in that neighborhood. And then really focusing on the access to community amenities. The Spender Park and the community center are assets there, but it sounds like over the last few years there hasn't been as much programming and dedicated time invested in making sure that that's an asset that's consistently available to the community. So we'll be thinking about ways to sort of identify funding and things like that can make stuff like that possible. Opportunities for this area, obviously the proximity to the levee district, so potentially thinking about ways to enhance, walkability and bikeability between this neighborhood and the surrounding commercial areas, thinking about development and redevelopment opportunities, and then also thinking about some strategies related to public infrastructure improvements that might be able to help address some of the flooding and other challenges here. So for our planning priorities in Richland, this will consist of primarily 2D mapping, focusing on future land use plans and strategies, rezoning considerations, trying to identify, development or redevelopment opportunity areas, things that could sort of serve as catalysts to, future investment. And I feel a lot of that is going to be related to, housing, and then also thinking about, potentially workforce programs. So, we don't want to displace an entire neighborhood. So, how do we, help put folks in a position where they can, move up and sort of grow as the community grows. And then just some of the feedback from our community survey specific to questions about Richland. What are the most important community needs? Folks talked about parks and recreation, specifically, improvements or a playground or some type of passive walking trail at the park there. And generally maintenance of the park on a regular basis, safety, having more walkable streets, so sidewalks, curb and gutter that go along with that. So, you address walkability and public improvements at the same time, code enforcement and property maintenance specifically related to rental properties. So I know sometimes communities can be a little lenient in that area, especially when you're dealing with neighborhoods who have certain socioeconomic challenges. But, the folks in the neighborhood, they want a clean, safe, and high-quality community. So, it sounds like, we can, press the issue on that topic a bit more. Youth programming, so more things for the youth in the neighborhood to do, specifically related to the community center. Again, housing was a topic that came up a lot in terms of maintenance and reinvestment. So, any questions about Richland stuff? Nope. Go ahead.
Just real quick, I know that's part of the community engagement is you have an upcoming meeting down there. Is that correct, with the neighbors down there?
Yes, that's correct.
When is that scheduled for?
It's going to be September 10th from 4 to 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so in the Four Corners District, a similar approach. What do we know? One thing that we know, and I'm not sure if I should talk about this today, but we've read and heard about the traffic study or analysis that was initially done back in 2017 that proposed the road diet for that area, and didn't receive a positive level of community feedback for that project to move forward. However, a clear priority for the Four Corners that we've heard so far is that this is where the community would like to see a more traditional Main Street be developed. So you think about a Main Street, you think about, street trees, wide sidewalks, space for sidewalk dining and patios and things like that. And so with the existing configuration of the right-of-way within that area, you're really challenged to have some of those types of amenities and improvements. So with our scenario planning process, we're planning to sort of revisit that traffic study, work with the city's engineer on that, propose some roadway design alternatives, and making sure that we have a clear understanding of any potential traffic or engineering concerns that design alternatives could pose, but really using some enhanced visualization from what was done in 2017 to really help the community better visualize what these potential changes could look like. Also looking at vacant and underutilized parcels within this district, focusing on specifically that intersection around East Washington Street and Main Street. We've got a concentration of older and more recent property owners who are looking to do something here in the district. So we've had some engagement with a number of property owners, and so our goal is to help them sort of examine the potential use of some of the properties that they own. So again, priorities for our team, thinking about future land use planning and strategies, rezoning considerations, development, design, character. So there's the Four Corners Overlay District, so we'll ensure that, our planning work aligns with that overlay district as much as possible. And then if there are instances where community feedback or recommendations that we may pose vary from that, those will be things that we note in the comprehensive plan where certain amendments may need to be made. We'll also be, using some 3D visualization to reimagine the transportation corridor and streetscape improvements, as well as development and redevelopment priority areas. So this specific sub area will include a mix of 2D and 3D visualization. Any questions on that? Nope.
You said you engaged some of the property owners, correct? Mm-hmm. Have you reached out to any of the corporate property owners, like the Kroger properties? Did they make statements about what they would like to see with the property?
Yes, so we fortunately we were able to speak with someone on behalf of Kroger and receive some, I think, positive feedback on what they'd like to do there in the future. And so we'll definitely be incorporating that into the scenario plan.
Okay.
I think the timing.
Was that positive feedback? They want a fuel station? Oh, thank you. I thought so. Yeah.
But not where you thought they wanted it.
I understand. Well, they got a lot of vacant property because they raised houses and people no longer have a home and we no longer collect property tax. So when they want to talk about their commitment, honoring their commitment of expansion, then we can talk about a fuel station. And I'll leave it there.
I was wondering if they have talked at all about redevelopment, if they've brought that up in the plan, what they would like to do.
So as you know, with you work with developers, a very just kind of across the board straight answer of yes, we're going to do this is not often what you get. Through our engagement with them, I will say that there is some potential opportunity to do something with the properties that they own. Okay. And I say that not to taking sides, but we do try to maintain like a level of anonymity so that stakeholders
just so you know,
trust
we're not
us.
trying to put you on the
Yeah, we're not trying
It's not fair to you. You're doing a great job. We're just getting our little jab in while we can.
Yeah.
Not on you.
So with the Four Corners District, we really do have a good opportunity here in that we have two of the four quadrants of that corner do have new owners or relatively new owners, and so they're looking for opportunities for redevelopment, and so this might be a really good opportunity to have that conversation about, what do they foresee going in there. are there opportunities for them to kind of fulfill some of these desires? I mean, I think we're hearing a lot from the community about opportunities for, mom and pop businesses and that sort of thing. How do you kind of recapture some of that old Main Street? It's challenging. It's a delicate balance because they're looking for tenants that are going to pay money, or that they're looking for folks that are going to buy the property from them. So there's an opportunity there, though. We've got some new owners that are looking to do something, I think, different than what we've seen up to this point. So hopefully there's some potential there for some improvement.
Seems like maybe a neat place for mixed use, or something that would be neat, eclectic, or I don't know. I'm not very artistic. I can't dream up things, but it could be a good place for
That's why you
development.
got that postcard in front of
That's
you.
right. It's right
Yeah.
here.
I know that I've had conversations with Ty about two of those properties that have been vacant for some time. I say my desire or look would be mixed use, which fits in with what some of the feedback is. But in that case, the property owners would have to raise their existing properties and develop it, because I thought it would complement the old block, which is better use than having a fuel station out there across from what is a mixed-use area. So,
I think is what a lot of people tend to forget is Kroger has a say in what goes right at that corner.
Yeah.
And that has been an extremely difficult challenge, even for the new property owner, that's brought forward numerous potential uses for that property, only to not fit the desire by Kroger. So it'll be interesting. We've got some work to do ahead of us, so.
So as a quick example, this is a summary of just one question from the survey related to things folks would like to see in the Four Corners district. So maintaining the block of, sort of historic Main Street types of buildings. Again, thinking about ways to attract more unique local businesses rather than chain development. Outdoor dining, again, Peoria Heights referenced a lot. Maintaining the grocery store, and some of additional feedback, mentioned seeing some reinvestment in the existing grocery store, and then just overall making the area more walkable and pedestrian friendly. So one example from a previous comprehensive plan that I thought, had some similarities to what we're wanting to do in the Four Corners district. This is an aerial view of Perryville, Missouri, at the intersection of South Perryville Boulevard and West St. Joseph Street. In Perryville, not sure if anyone's ever visited there, but West St. Joseph Street is sort of the primary corridor that transitions you from sort of your big box drive-through commercial sort of area into the downtown. So if you're coming in off the highway, St. Joseph Street is the corridor that you take into the downtown. They had some challenges with transportation and the right-of-way, concerns related to safety, speeding, making sure that there are adequate facilities for walking and biking, those sorts of things. And so we did there also do some 3D visualization related to roadway alternatives to help them through that process. But overall, the community wanted to see this corridor, which already started to see some signs of transition, where you had residential structures that were starting to turn over to small commercial uses. So the community thought that this would be a great opportunity for a Main Street-like corridor. So more walkable, more small local businesses, an opportunity for some potentially some mixed use and more diverse housing options. And so ultimately, we did some 3D visualization. This is just one image that sort of shows how we transform community feedback and then our work with the steering committee and staff into a vision of what this corridor could potentially be. And so this is, where we hope to end up for the Four Corners district. So. And then next steps, we'll continue some of our stakeholder meetings, continuing to talk with property owners and other stakeholders relevant to Richland and the Four Corners district. We have the Richland Neighborhood Pop-Up event scheduled for September 10th. And we have our second open house scheduled for September 25th. September 25th, both of those events should be posted on the project website now. And then we'll have another meeting with our steering committee in September going into the open house. And that's all I have.
Comments from the council. You guys have any comments or questions? Ty, anything else you want to add while they're contemplating?
You know, one event that wasn't showing up there is I'm looking forward to going to the East Peoria High School civics class. You know, we've had some experience with talking about development with those kids before, and it's just some of the feedback you get is not your typical. And so I'm pretty excited for that, and this is a great opportunity to reach out to the young folks that are going to be, you know, in our community, hopefully stay here and make it a better place. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's a great place to get information because they're extremely engaged.
Yeah.
We've always enjoyed going into that class in the fall. So a lot of great ideas out there. I mean, some of these people have put a lot of thought and effort behind it. It's not just an exercise for them. So be interested to see how it works out for you.
So one quick question. One of your first slides, excuse me, had new home construction. And do you know, and Ty, you may know, how many new homes we built last year? I mean, the number was the line was so thin.
I mean, we've kind of skated at it's been a continuous pace, but it's been no spec building for the most part. I want to say we were somewhere in the 20 or 25 range, but that's been kind of where we've been since 2008, 2009. So there is some housing that's being, you know, put into circulation. But as Kristen points out, I mean, you've still got this predominance of older housing stock that's pre-1970s maybe.
Yeah, that's just that's interesting because I would say I know we're landlocked here.
Yeah.
That's probably a statistic as far as our residential growth that would be important to look at. That we're not building a lot of new houses. So as the community gets older, so will our houses and our neighborhoods.
Correct. Yeah, our housing, I would say that the majority of our new single-family housing is happening in Cypress Ridge. Right now, that's probably the biggest contributor to single-family housing development. The next phase of that development does go into East Peoria schools. So this is part of our challenge is the post office and school district boundaries don't necessarily aren't consistent with the cities. So a lot of our growth areas for single-family housing are outside of kind of East Peoria schools as well. So there's something we've got to work on there. You know, we've done a great job of incentivizing commercial development over the years. Whether that's a conversation we want to have about housing, we talked about it. There are some avenues to pursue out there, but it's probably worth a conversation to look at. How do we kickstart that and maybe get that a little higher clip?
I think that's a good point to bring up because just watching, I believe, unless I heard the numbers this year were down to a mark in East Peoria High School that was lower than in any year past. I believe it was under 900, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just having been a volunteer for the band organization, you see that decline. It just puts you into competition with different schools, and I agree. We should do what we can to help turn that around. It's not necessarily, we're not over that, but we can try to help build that as much as we can.
I mean, I think that ties into our branding, the conversations that we've had with that directly tie. I mean, those two things directly tie together.
Exactly, they do.
Well, I'm going to be a naysayer here. Surprise. If you want to bring kids into East Peoria grade schools, you got to think about the boundaries before you bring somebody in to be greedy to collect taxes and not think about the big picture about bringing the kids into the school district some way, somehow. And I've been saying that since I was on the high school board 25 years ago. But if you want to bring young families in, you got to figure out the property tax problem, because the city's done a really good job of keeping the city taxes down. But I don't want to pick on the school districts, but here we go. There's a cap, and they don't want to pass it through, and I'm sure somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong. They couldn't pass a referendum to raise property taxes, and the state came up with the idea to put a tax cap on, and without a referendum, and they go to the cap every year, just about, or all the time to the max. And you take a look at your property tax bill, a huge amount of it's the school districts. And why is it the school districts? Because they're paying into the pension programs. Why are they paying into the pension programs? Well, I know the teachers pay into their pension, but they don't pay into their pension like the private sector does. So that means that the state is supposed to pay that part in, and they haven't been doing a very good job. I can remember a couple decades ago when the new Constitution of Illinois was approved. It didn't say that the state will pay 51% of a child's education. It said maybe pay 51% of the child's. So it all comes back to the property tax owner. And East Peoria, we have some high taxes, but all of Illinois does. It's running everybody out of this state. So this is a bigger picture than just branding East Peoria. We can do what we can do, but with the rules and regulations that we have to play under, it's nearly an impossibility for a young family to move here and get started. Unless they've been transferred in, they got a hell of a job, they're having a problem struggling, so they move to cheaper, smaller communities on the outskirts and come back and forth. You guys get where I'm going. I think we can beat this horse until it's dead, but it all comes back to taxes and common sense. There's not a whole lot you can do with Four Corners in East Peoria because of the parking. Plain and simple. You can put all the walking paths you want in. You can want to have a confectionery. You can want to have a lot of things. But if you don't have a place for people to park, to walk, to get there, it ain't going to happen. So I'm done.
Okay. Any other comments from the council? Hearing none. Comments from the audience? Anyone in the audience wish to? Don, anything? Can you come up to the microphone, please?
So we've done this planning before. Have we looked back at the plans and see if we were anywhere close to projecting out what was going to happen, lessons learned or anything? Have we incorporated any of that?
So these plans are 20-year plans, and I know it's been some years ago. Ty, I don't think I was on the council. I was on that side of the microphone. And Ty told me it was in the comprehensive plan. I don't know if he remembers this. I'm like, well, where can I find that?
Yeah.
This is what I love about this process. It's been so transparent. And in fairness to Ty, I wasn't beating on Ty when I was asking the question years ago. Ty wasn't here. Ty wasn't part of that plan. But we have gone back and looked at certain aspects of that plan. One of the things, and I know what she gave here tonight as a presentation or an update was high level. We've been part of the process all along. And you look at these opportunities, and that's what I was focused on, and some of these opportunities, both commercial and residential. And I see two of our biggest opportunities, really for both, is south. So you have the Pinecrest corridor, and then for residential, when you go back and look at the current plan, those are areas that we didn't really focus on. And I'm not being critical, I can't answer as to why. But some of the stuff that's in the plan, yes, the city has actually taken the heed and done that. But I mean, when you go back and look, the comprehensive plan, the current plan is on the website. But to answer your question specifically, that I think has been part of the frustration when you come up with these plans. and I know Commissioner Decker and I can speak to this. On the council, we served on 2 councils ago. We did a strategic plan under then City Administrator Eder. Well, when you look and you came up with this strategic plan, right? If you don't follow through with the plan, then you just wasted your time and your money and your effort, is what I would like to see. And I appreciate all their efforts. They're doing a tremendous job. I've never seen the community more engaged before in 9 years being elected than I have on this. And that's something to be said, like their open house out here. I didn't want to get involved or try to sway someone's opinion. I kind of tried to stay away from it. But what I did see, they had little Post-it notes out there, and people were very engaged. And that's without knowing what was in that plan 20 years ago. Let's talk about this plan, but not only once we adopt a plan, we really need to follow through with it. And we have to have a commitment that, hey, let's focus on this stuff. So to your point.
So, and I remember some of the older plans, and when I look back at it, there was a lot of projections, and like you said, nothing got done. The other thing too is back then we had growth opportunities, and we don't have that, quite that opportunity, landlocked. Then again, 20 years from now, what's going to be here? Nobody would have thought that this would be here 20 years prior. So,
yeah, it's about visionary leadership. I have some concerns. Anyone that's watched the news sees what's going on with the state and the county with solar farms. And we're going toe-to-toe with the county now because they approved a solar farm right within our planning boundaries, which are within 1.5 miles of the corporate limits. When you look at those planning boundaries in the plan and what I suspect will be in this plan, because it's one area of growth is residential, we are landlocked. So our biggest opportunity is south. And now, because of the new state law and the way that it reads, some would argue the county has no choice but to approve these within our planning boundaries. I disagree with that. We won't know until someone takes it to court. And I'm not saying that's where it's headed, but I'm just stating a fact. I look at all these other factors that are out of our control that I think as a whole, it's kind of tied into the commissioner, some of his points about frustration with state government. These people are out of touch, and they need to be more in touch with local governments to make sure that we're all doing our part, right, to ensure Illinois of its success, both residentially and retaining people, attracting people, whether it be business or residents alike. So, but
yeah, and as he said with the tax structure, though, we can go back and look. Last 25 years, the city has maintained, while the rest has grown quite a bit, and we're 70% of it's going to the schools, and they're driving people out. It's hard to bring people in or want to come here, period. We're either number 1 or number 2 for the highest taxes. We trade back and forth with New Jersey, and, it's hard for the retirees. I mean, there's fixed income, growth, so.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, this is going back to a little bit of your original question. But your question was about, do we go back and lessons learned and look at it? But referring to the plan, I was on the zoning board, ZBA for 19 years. The comprehensive plan was often referenced when somebody was coming to the ZBA asking to do a business here or there. It was often referred to when making or directing that board. This is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So even though that business type might not have been there, it was often referred to say, I don't say to check, say, oh, yep, the comprehensive plan supports, that type of enterprise or organization going into a certain place. So
was the plan ever brought out to the board?
When I joined the board, each one got a copy, and that was in the paper version. And then when the additions or updates were made, you would get some update there. So the board members, when I joined, were given a copy of the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, I really think both elected officials and staff alike have an obligation to do their part to focus on that plan. And really, I mean, that should be tied into some of your goals.
Right.
And make sure that you're meeting those goals over the course of the next, in this case, 20 years. So I'm kind of,
Well, I'll tell you, Mayor, I agree with, and when you said it a few minutes ago about their company and how good of a job they've done on this, it is an enormous amount of buy-in from people. I've had people ask me, how can I give my opinion? And it's easy to find that information. I agree with you that not only do we do this, we need to do this and see it all the way through, but then keep it in front of us as we move forward. And, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but as people choose to try to run for the city council or get on different boards, hopefully this is in the forefront, because this shows what the community and others from around our community would like to see, like the growth, where the growth should be, and what types of amenities they're looking for.
Yeah, I agree.
Infrastructure is included as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we ran into the problem with the sewer plants on the last one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Any parting comments, Ty? Anything else you want to add before we?
No, thank you for your time, and we'll give you updates as they come available.
And thank you, Kristen, for all your input and your presentation. We appreciate the work you're doing and look forward to continuing to work with you here. So,
All right, thank you.
yeah, thank you. All right. If we have nothing else, I'd seek a motion to adjourn this working session.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus and Commissioner Decker. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call?
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. This working session is adjourned, and the regular council meeting will begin in approximately 9 minutes.